The scream cut through the mansion like broken glass. 3 small voices cried at once. Not angry, not scared, shocked. Everyone in the room froze. The billionaire stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. His breath caught in his throat as he stared across the marble floor. His heart pounded so loud it hurt his ears. Because the triplets, his triplets, who had refused every nanny, every nurse, every helper, every expert money could buy, were standing still, silent, watching the black maid. And what she had just done was something no one had ever dared to do before. The old woman's hands were still in the air. The room smelled different now. Calm, warm, almost like rain after a storm. One of the children took a step toward her. The billionaire whispered, "No," but it was too late. The triplets moved, and the moment that followed would change everything, or destroy it. 2 weeks earlier, the Carter estate was at war. Not the kind with guns or shouting crowds. This war happened behind tall iron gates, under white chandeliers, and inside a house so big it echoed when you walked alone. Bennett Carter was one of the richest men in America. He built his fortune from nothing. No trust fund, no shortcuts, just sharp thinking, long nights, and a cold focus that never failed him. Business bent to his will. People listened when he spoke, but his children did not. Ethan, Emma, and Eli Carter were 6-year-old triplets with bright eyes, quick minds, and walls around their hearts that no adult could break through. Since the day their mother died, they had refused everyone. They screamed when touched. They hid when spoken to. They locked themselves in rooms. They destroyed toys. They bit, kicked, threw things. Doctors said trauma. Experts said patience. Nannies said goodbye, one by one. Some quit after a week. Others lasted 1 day. One didn't even make it past the front door. The agency stopped answering Bennett's calls. The mansion staff walked on eggshells. And Bennett Carter, the man who controlled billion-dollar deals without blinking, sat alone at night staring at 3 empty chairs at the dinner table. "I'm failing them," he whispered to the dark. Every morning he promised himself he would do better. Every night he broke again. The triplets had stopped speaking weeks ago. Not just to him, to anyone. Their voices existed only in screams now. The last nanny quit on a Tuesday. Her name was Rebecca. She came highly trained. Calm voice, perfect resume. She lasted 4 hours. When Bennett came home early that day, he found her sobbing near the gate. Shoes in her hands, hair messy, eyes red. "They're not bad kids," she said, shaking. "They're hurting, but I can't reach them. No one can." Then she left. The house felt emptier than ever. Bennett stood in the long hallway, listening to the distant sound of something breaking upstairs. He didn't move. He didn't shout. He just closed his eyes. That was when Mrs. Lillian Green appeared. She had worked in the Carter mansion for over 10 years. She cleaned. She cooked. She stayed quiet. Most people barely noticed her. She was short, dark-skinned, and walked with a slow step. Her gray hair was always pulled back neatly. Her uniform was clean but old. She had raised children of her own once. A long time ago. She watched Bennett carefully now. "You haven't eaten, sir," she said softly. Bennett opened his eyes. "They won't let anyone near them." Mrs. Green nodded. "Children don't refuse love," she said. "They refuse fear." He sighed. "I've tried everything." She paused. Her hands tightened around her apron. "May I try?" she asked. Bennett looked at her. Really looked. "You?" he asked, not unkindly. "Just tired." She met his eyes. "Yes, sir." He hesitated. Every expert had failed. Every trained professional had failed. What could a cleaning woman do? "I'll pay you extra," he said quickly. "But I won't put you in danger." Mrs. Green smiled gently. "I've been in danger before." Upstairs, a loud crash echoed. Bennett flinched. "Just try," he said. Mrs. Green nodded once, and began to walk toward the stairs. The triplets' room looked like a storm had passed through it. Pillows ripped open, books torn, crayons smashed into the walls. Ethan stood on the bed, fists tight. Emma sat in the corner, rocking. Eli blocked the door with a chair. Their eyes burned with fear and anger. Mrs. Green stopped at the doorway. She did not step inside. She did not speak. She simply sat down on the floor. The children stared at her. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then Ethan screamed. A sharp, painful sound. Mrs. Green didn't move. Eli threw a toy truck. It hit the wall near her head. She didn't flinch. Emma cried. Mrs. Green closed her eyes and began to hum. Not loud, not fast, just a low, steady sound. A song from long ago. The room grew quiet, not silent, but softer. The children froze. Ethan stopped screaming. Emma stopped rocking. Eli loosened his grip on the chair. They stared at her like she had done something wrong, or dangerous. Mrs. Green opened her eyes. Still, she didn't speak. After a long moment, she stood up and walked away. She didn't even try to touch them, Bennett said later, confused. Mrs. Green wiped her hands in the kitchen. I wasn't invited. The next day, she did the same thing. And the next. She came. She sat. She hummed. She left. No orders. No questions. No force. On the fourth day, Emma spoke. Just one word. Song. Mrs. Green smiled and kept humming. The staff whispered. The security cameras recorded. Bennett watched every night. Hope crept back into his chest. Slow. Careful. Then, on the seventh day, everything went wrong. The house was full that afternoon. A child therapist was visiting. A new nanny waited in the hall. Bennett stood nearby, watching through the open door. Mrs. Green entered the room like always. But this time, she didn't sit. She walked straight to the center of the room. The triplets stiffened. Ethan screamed. Eli lunged forward. Emma cried out. The therapist jumped up. Stop her, Bennett shouted. Mrs. Green! But she didn't stop. She did something no one expected. No one allowed. No one had ever done. She dropped to her knees, placed her hands flat on the floor, and bowed her head. Then she spoke. The words were simple, but heavy. I see you, she said. The triplets froze. Mrs. Green lifted her head. Tears ran down her face. You don't have to fight anymore. The room went silent. And then, that scream. The one that started everything. Because the children reacted. All at once. And Bennett realized, in that moment, that whatever Mrs. Green had just done, there was no turning back now. The scream did not sound like anger. It sounded like pain breaking open. Ethan fell to his knees first. His hands pressed hard against his ears as if he was trying to block something out. Eli backed away, shaking his head over and over. Emma stood frozen, tears rolling down her face, her small chest moving fast as she struggled to breathe. The therapist rushed forward. We need to stop this now. Bennett stepped into the room. Everyone back, he ordered. Mrs. Green was still on her knees. She did not reach for the children. She did not raise her voice. She stayed right where she was. I'm not here to take you, she said softly. I'm here to stay. Ethan screamed again, louder this time, and suddenly he ran. Not away, toward her. Bennett's heart nearly stopped. Ethan, he shouted. The therapist moved to grab him, but Ethan slipped past, crashing straight into Mrs. Green's chest. He hit her hard, hard enough that she rocked back. But she did not fall. She wrapped her arms around him. Just once. Just enough. Ethan sobbed into her shirt like his body had been waiting for years to do it. The room froze. Emma let out a broken cry and dropped to the floor. Eli stood shaking, fists tight, eyes wide like he didn't know whether to run or scream or follow. Mrs. Green looked up at him. She didn't say his name. She just opened one arm. Eli hesitated. Then slowly, like stepping into cold water, he moved forward and pressed himself against her side. Emma crawled last. When her small hands touched Mrs. Green's sleeve, something in Bennett broke. His knees gave out and he grabbed the doorframe to stay standing. The triplets were crying. Not screaming. Crying. For the first time since their mother died. The therapist whispered, This isn't possible." Mrs. Green closed her eyes and hummed, After that day, the house changed. Not fast, but real. The therapist left early. The new nanny never came back. No one argued. Bennett didn't care. The triplets would not let Mrs. Green out of their sight. She didn't move into their room. She didn't stop doing her work. She just became present. She ate with them on the floor. She listened when they were silent. She hummed when words were too heavy. They still had bad moments. Ethan threw things. Eli hid under tables. Emma woke up screaming at night. But now, when fear came, they didn't fight it alone. They ran to Mrs. Green, and she was always there. Bennett watched from a distance. He didn't want to break it. One evening, he finally spoke to her. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. Mrs. Green stirred her tea. "I didn't do anything special. You brought them back to life," he said. She looked at him then. Really looked. "No," she said gently. "They were never gone. They were just buried." He swallowed. "Why you?" She smiled sadly. "Because I know what it is to lose someone and still be expected to breathe." Bennett said nothing. He didn't need to. Days turned into weeks. The triplets began to speak again. Not full sentences. Small words. Safe words. "Stay. Here. Song." Bennett heard Emma laugh one afternoon and sat down on the stairs, covering his face. For the first time in a year, he slept through the night. But peace never lasts long in big houses. One morning, a black car pulled into the driveway. Bennett knew it before the doorbell rang. The child services director stood at the door with two officers. "We've received reports," she said calmly, "about an unlicensed caregiver," she continued, "and concerns about boundaries." Bennett's chest tightened. Mrs. Green stood behind him. The triplets peeked from the hallway. "We're here to observe," the director said. Ethan grabbed Mrs. Green's hand. Emma hid behind her skirt. Eli blocked the doorway. The director noticed everything. Her eyes narrowed. "We'll need to speak privately," she said. Mrs. Green squeezed the children's hands once. "I'll be right back," she promised. The triplets screamed as she walked away. Bennett turned to the director. "They're finally healing," she nodded. "Or becoming dependent." Mrs. Green sat quietly in the interview room. She answered every question honestly. Yes, she held them. Yes, she comforted them. Yes, she stayed with them when they cried. The director closed her folder. "You understand how this looks," she said. Mrs. Green nodded. "Yes, ma'am. You're not certified." "No, ma'am. You crossed professional lines." "I crossed human ones," Mrs. Green replied softly. The director stood. "We'll be in touch." That night, the triplets refused to eat. They refused to sleep. They lined up at the door like soldiers guarding something precious. Bennett tried to reassure them. "She's not leaving," he promised. But fear has sharp ears. At midnight, a letter slid under Bennett's door. He opened it with shaking hands. It was official. An order. Mrs. Green was to be removed from direct contact with the children until further evaluation. Bennett's breath left him. Down the hall, 3 small voices began to cry. And as he rushed toward them, he realized the worst extreme had not happened yet. It was coming. And this time, he didn't know if love alone would be enough to stop it. The crying spread through the house like fire. Ethan's voice cracked first. Then Emma's. Then Eli's low, broken sobs followed. The sound hit Bennett harder than any boardroom loss ever had. He ran. When he reached their room, the triplets were huddled together on the floor, arms wrapped tight around each other like they were the only thing keeping themselves from disappearing. "She's gone," Emma cried. "She's gone." "No," Bennett said quickly, kneeling down. "She's still here. She didn't leave." "She will," Ethan shouted. "They always do." Eli looked up at Bennett with red eyes. "They take people away." Bennett froze. That sentence was not something a child should know. He took a slow breath. "No one is taking her away tonight," he said, even though the paper in his pocket burned like fire. "I promise." The triplets didn't look convinced. They didn't sleep that night. Neither did he. The next morning, Mrs. Green was not allowed upstairs. That was the rule. She stayed in the kitchen, humming quietly as she worked. Her hands shook just a little as she washed dishes. She could hear the children crying above her. Each sound pulled at her heart. But she stayed where she was told. Bennett came down the stairs with dark circles under his eyes. "They won't come down," he said. Mrs. Green nodded. "They're scared." "So am I," he admitted. He looked at her like a man standing at the edge of something he couldn't see the bottom of. "I won't let them take you," he said firmly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sometimes things are taken even when we fight." Bennett clenched his fists. "Not this time." Child Services returned 3 days later. This time they brought more people. Clipboards, serious faces, rules. The triplets were made to sit on the couch while strangers watched them like puzzles to be solved. Mrs. Green was kept across the room. Too far. Emma reached out for her. "Don't," the director said sharply. Emma screamed. Ethan kicked the table over. Eli shoved a chair into the wall. The observers wrote quickly. "Severe attachment." One of them whispered. Mrs. Green's chest tightened. Bennett stood between the children and the officials. "You're hurting them." The director closed her notebook. "Mr. Carter, this situation is unhealthy." "No," he said. "What was unhealthy was before she came." The director's voice stayed calm. "We believe Mrs. Green's presence is preventing proper emotional independence." Mrs. Green finally spoke. "They're 6. The room went quiet. "They lost their mother," she continued softly. "They weren't given time to grieve. They were told to be strong, to behave, to move on." The director looked at her. "That's not your place to decide." Mrs. Green nodded. "I know." The director stood. Effective immediately, Mrs. Green will be reassigned to duties outside the home. Emma screamed so loud it hurt everyone's ears. "No!" Ethan shouted. "You can't." Eli ran and wrapped himself around Mrs. Green's legs. "Please!" he cried. Bennett felt something inside him snap. "Get out," he said. The room froze. "Excuse me?" the director asked. "My house," Bennett said, his voice low and shaking. "Get out." The director stared at him. "You don't understand the power you're challenging." Bennett stepped forward. "Then explain it to my lawyers." The officials left, but the damage stayed. That night, Mrs. Green packed her things. Just a small bag. The triplets sat silently on the bed, watching. "Are you leaving?" Emma asked. Mrs. Green knelt in front of them. "Not because I want to." Ethan's face hardened. "They're making you." She nodded. Eli's lip trembled. "Did we do something bad?" Mrs. Green shook her head firmly. "No, you loved. That is never bad." She hugged them once. Long, tight. Then she stood and walked away. The door closed behind her. The scream that followed was worse than the first. The next day, the house felt dead. No humming. No warmth. The triplets stopped eating again. They stopped speaking. They stopped responding. Bennett watched doctors come and go. Nothing helped. At midnight, he stood alone in his office, staring at the city lights. He picked up his phone and made a decision that could cost him everything. 3 nights later, thunder rolled over the mansion. The power flickered. The triplets woke screaming. Then, a loud crash from downstairs. The security alarm blared. Guards ran. Bennett rushed into the hall and froze. Standing in the doorway, soaked from the rain, was Mrs. Green. Her bag was gone. Her eyes were calm. Behind her, police lights flashed red and blue. She stepped forward and said one sentence that made Bennett's blood run cold. "They're coming for the children." And before he could ask what she meant, the lights went out, and someone screamed. Darkness swallowed the mansion. The alarm screamed louder. Footsteps pounded through the halls. "Dad!" Ethan cried somewhere above. Emma's voice followed, thin and sharp. "Daddy!" Bennett moved without thinking. He ran toward the stairs, his heart slamming hard against his chest. The power was gone, but emergency lights flickered red along the walls, throwing long shadows that twisted like claws. Mrs. Green grabbed his arm. "Not yet," she said. "What do you mean, not yet?" Bennett snapped. My kids are. They're watching, she whispered. And they want chaos. Bennett froze. Who is they? Before she could answer, a guard shouted from the front hall. Sir, police are requesting entry. Bennett turned toward the sound. On whose authority? Child Services, the guard replied. Bennett's stomach dropped. Mrs. Green's grip tightened. This is what I tried to stop. Another crash echoed upstairs. Eli screamed. That sound broke Bennett free. He tore up the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring Mrs. Green calling after him. The triplets' door was open. The room was half lit by lightning flashing through the windows. Furniture was overturned. The window was open. Rain poured in. Emma stood on the bed, shaking. Ethan held a broken lamp like a weapon. Eli was backed into the corner, eyes wide with terror. They said we're going away, Ethan shouted when he saw Bennett. Bennett rushed to them, pulling all 3 into his arms. No one is taking you, he said, forcing his voice to stay steady. No one. A shadow moved in the hallway. 2 uniformed officers stepped forward. Mr. Carter, one said loudly. We have a court-backed emergency order. Bennett turned slowly, fury burning through fear. You barge into my home in the dark and scare my children? Sir, please cooperate. Mrs. Green appeared behind the officers. She looked at the children, then at Bennett. They're not here to talk, she said quietly. They're here to remove. Emma screamed and buried her face in Bennett's chest. No, Eli shouted. We stay. The officers moved closer. And then Mrs. Green did the unthinkable. She stepped between the officers and the children. You will not touch them, she said. One officer frowned. Ma'am, step aside. She didn't move. You will have to arrest me first, she said calmly. The room went silent except for the rain. Bennett stared at her in shock. The officers exchanged looks. Mrs. Green, Bennett whispered. Please. She shook her head. I've buried 2 sons, she said softly. I will not watch 3 more be taken while they're still breathing. The officer reached for his radio. That's when the fire alarm went off. Not the security alarm. The fire alarm. Red lights flashed. Sirens wailed. Smoke drifted from the hallway. Fire in the West Wing, someone shouted. The officers cursed and backed away. Bennett grabbed the children. We're leaving now. They ran. Down the stairs. Through smoke. Through confusion. Mrs. Green stayed behind, holding the officers back. Go! She shouted. Bennett hesitated only once. Then he ran. They made it outside just as fire trucks pulled in. Rain mixed with smoke. The triplets clung to Bennett, coughing and crying. Firefighters rushed past them. Bennett turned, searching. Where is she? Emma sobbed. Bennett didn't answer. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, a firefighter emerged from the smoke. Everyone accounted for, he said. One older woman treated for smoke inhalation. Bennett's knees went weak. Mrs. Green was brought out on a stretcher. She was conscious. Her eyes found the children. She smiled. They broke free from Bennett and ran to her. She saved us, Ethan cried. The officers watched from a distance, faces unreadable. The director arrived soon after, heels clicking on wet pavement. This changes nothing, she said coldly. The order still stands. Bennett stood up slowly. Rain soaked his suit. His voice was calm. You will not take my children, he said. Not tonight. Not ever. The director smirked. You don't have that choice. Bennett pulled out his phone. Watch me. By morning, the fire was ruled an electrical failure. But Bennett knew better. So did Mrs. Green. She sat in a hospital bed, oxygen tube under her nose. Bennett stood beside her. I'm sorry, he said. She shook her head. I would do it again. The triplets slept in chairs nearby, finally exhausted. Bennett looked at her. You said they were coming for the children. How did you know? Mrs. Green closed her eyes. I heard things, she said. Saw papers I wasn't meant to see. His chest tightened. What kind of papers? About relocation, she replied. About splitting them up. Bennett's blood ran cold. They can't, he said. They will try, she answered. He leaned closer. Then help me stop them. Mrs. Green opened her eyes and met his gaze. There is a reason they fear me, she said. Before Bennett could ask what she meant, a nurse rushed in. Mr. Carter, she said urgently. Child Services is here. And this time, they have a judge on the line. The triplets stirred. Mrs. Green's hand tightened around Bennett's wrist. And in that moment, he realized the next move could cost him his fortune, his freedom, or his children. And he still didn't know who started the fire. The hospital hallway felt too bright, too clean, too quiet for something so dangerous. Bennett stood near Mrs. Green's bed while the triplets slept curled together in the chairs beside her. Emma's head rested on Eli's shoulder. Ethan's hand clutched Mrs. Green's blanket like it might disappear if he let go. A nurse whispered, "They're here." Bennett turned. Two Child Services officials stood at the end of the hall. Between them was a tablet screen showing the face of a judge. His eyes were tired, serious. "Mr. Carter," the judge said through the speaker, "we need to talk." Bennett straightened. "My children have been through enough. This is about their safety," the judge replied. Mrs. Green slowly sat up. The oxygen tube moved with her. "They are safest together," she said. The judge paused. "Mrs. Green, you are not their legal guardian." "No," she agreed. "But I am someone they trust." "That trust may be unhealthy," the judge said. Ethan stirred and opened his eyes. "Don't take us," he whispered. The judge looked away for a moment. "Mr. Carter," he said, "there are concerns about emotional dependency and outside influence." Bennett felt his chest tighten. "Outside influence?" The judge cleared his throat. "Mrs. Green's background." Mrs. Green's eyes darkened. Bennett turned sharply. "What background?" One of the officials tapped the screen. "Her full name is Lillian May Green," the woman said. "She was once involved in a highly publicized custody protest case 25 years ago." Bennett froze. "What?" Mrs. Green closed her eyes. The official continued. "She was arrested during a protest at a foster care facility. The charges were dropped, but the incident remains on record." Emma sat up. "She's not bad." The official didn't look at her. The judge spoke again. "Given the situation, we are ordering a temporary separation. The children will be placed under supervised care until a full review." "No," Bennett said. "It's not a request," the judge replied. Eli stood up, shaking. "We stay with her." The officials stepped forward. Mrs. Green swung her legs off the bed. "Stop," she said. Her voice was calm, but strong. "I will go," she said, "but they will not be separated." The officials hesitated. Bennett turned to her. "No, I won't let you sacrifice yourself." She looked at him gently. "You already did, when you let them love me." The judge frowned. "Mrs. Green, are you admitting to manipulation?" She shook her head. "I'm admitting to kindness." The triplets clung to her. "Please," Emma cried. The judge sighed. "One night," he said finally. "One more night. Then we proceed." The screen went dark. Bennett exhaled shakily. But Mrs. Green did not relax. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "And next time they won't ask." They returned to the mansion under heavy rain. Police cars watched from a distance. The house felt wrong. Too still. Bennett ordered security doubled. The triplets slept in Bennett's room, refusing to be alone. Mrs. Green sat in a chair by the window, humming softly. Bennett watched her. "Tell me about the protest," he said. She nodded slowly. "My sister's children were taken," she said. "Wrongfully. Papers were forged. Lies were told." "Did you prove it?" "Yes," she said. "After years." Bennett's jaw tightened. "So why do they still come after you?" "Because I remember," she replied. "And because I speak." A loud thud echoed outside. Security radios crackled. "Sir," a guard said over the intercom. "We have movement near the east gate." Bennett stood. "Lock it down." Mrs. Green rose. They're testing you. Lightning flashed. The power flickered. Again. Emma whimpered. Not again. Suddenly, the house lights went out. Total darkness. Then, a sharp bang. Glass shattered downstairs. The alarm failed to sound. Bennett's heart raced. Stay here, he told the children. No, Ethan cried. Footsteps echoed. Fast. Heavy. Mrs. Green moved first. She opened the door and stepped into the hall. Bennett followed. 3 figures in dark clothing moved through the lower level. Not police. Not security. One of them held a folder. Another carried zip ties. Bennett's blood ran cold. Mrs. Green whispered, They came without papers. The figure looked up and spotted them. Target located, he said into a radio. Bennett grabbed Mrs. Green's arm. Back, but she stepped forward instead. You have no right, she said loudly. The man sneered. We have orders. She stood taller. Then you're breaking the law. The man laughed and raised his hand. And behind him, Ethan screamed, because the third figure had reached the doorway and was reaching for Emma. Bennett charged. Security rushed in, shouting. Chaos exploded through the house. Mrs. Green grabbed the man's arm and did something no one expected. She twisted his wrist hard. The folder dropped. Papers scattered across the floor. Bennett glanced down, and his breath stopped, because the papers showed something impossible. Plan. Signed. Stamped. Not for temporary care, but permanent removal and separation. The men ran. The police arrived too late. Silence fell. Mrs. Green looked at Bennett, breathing hard. They weren't supposed to move yet, she said. Bennett picked up the papers with shaking hands. They just did, he replied. Upstairs, the triplets cried together. And for the first time, Bennett understood the truth. This was no longer about rules or care. It was a fight, and someone very powerful wanted his children. Chapter 6. Morning came, but no one slept. The sun rose over the Carter mansion like nothing was wrong. Birds sang. Cars passed outside the gates. But inside, the house felt like it was holding its breath. The triplets sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in blankets. Emma held Mrs. Green's hand. Ethan stared at the papers spread across the counter. Eli leaned against Bennett's side, silent. Bennett read the documents again, and again, and again. Permanent removal, separate placements, different states. His hands shook. They were never supposed to see these, he said. Mrs. Green nodded. Which means someone moved too early. Bennett looked up. Who? She hesitated. People who make money when families break. Ethan frowned. Why would someone want us gone? Bennett knelt in front of him. They don't want you gone, he said carefully. They want control. Emma's voice was small. Will they come back? Mrs. Green answered before Bennett could. Yes. The room went quiet. But, she added, now we're ready. Bennett's lawyers arrived before noon. Best in the country. Sharp suits. Calm voices. They studied the papers, faces tightening. This is bad, one said. These orders were pre-approved. By who? Bennett demanded. The lawyer shook his head. We need time. Mrs. Green spoke up. You don't have time. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss the next powerful billionaire story. They all turned to her. They'll try again tonight, she said. Quietly. One lawyer frowned. And how do you know that? She met his eyes. Because it's how they did it before. Bennett swallowed. Then we leave. The lawyers protested. Mrs. Green shook her head. Running makes you look guilty. Bennett slammed his hand on the table. Then what do we do? She took a breath. We tell the truth. Loud. By afternoon, the story broke. Not from Bennett. From an anonymous source. Headlines flashed across phones and TVs. Billionaire accused of hiding children from welfare oversight. Questions raised over unlicensed caregiver. The triplets watched the news silently. They're lying, Emma said. Bennett turned off the TV. They always do, Mrs. Green said. Security reported cars parked outside the gate. Cameras. Reporters. The pressure was building. Eli tugged Bennett's sleeve. Are we bad? Bennett's chest hurt. No. You're loved. Eli nodded slowly, like he was trying to believe it. That evening, Mrs. Green asked to speak to Bennett alone. They stood in the library, surrounded by books Bennett had never had time to read. There's something I haven't told you, she said. He nodded. I'm listening. She folded her hands. The protest they mentioned wasn't the first time. Bennett stiffened. I used to work as a foster aide, she continued. I saw children moved like boxes. Brothers split. Sisters lost. You fought it, Bennett said. Yes, she replied. And I made enemies. He exhaled slowly. That's why they're scared of you. She nodded. And why they want me gone. A loud knock echoed through the house. Security rushed in. Sir, they're here. Bennett's heart dropped. Already. Court officers, the guard said. With a new order. Mrs. Green closed her eyes. They accelerated. The triplets ran into the room. No, Ethan said. Not again. Bennett knelt and held them. Stay behind me. The front doors opened. 5 people walked in. 2 officers. A social worker. A man in a gray suit. And a woman Bennett had never seen before. She smiled coldly. Mr. Carter, she said. I'm Ms. Howard. State Oversight. Mrs. Green's jaw tightened. You. Ms. Howard glanced at her. Still interfering, I see. Bennett stepped forward. You're not taking my children. Ms. Howard held up a paper. We are. She nodded to the officers. They moved. Mrs. Green stepped in front of the triplets again. I warned you, she said to Ms. Howard. Ms. Howard's smile faded. Remove her. An officer reached for Mrs. Green, and something inside Ethan snapped. He screamed and grabbed a heavy book from the shelf. Don't touch her. Before anyone could stop him, he threw it. The book hit the officer's shoulder. Chaos exploded. Officers shouted. Security rushed in. Emma cried. Eli froze. Ms. Howard shouted, Enough! The room went silent. She pointed at Mrs. Green. You are under arrest for obstruction. Bennett roared. No! Handcuffs clicked. Emma screamed. Eli collapsed to the floor. Ethan charged forward. Mrs. Green turned quickly. Stop, she said firmly. They froze. She knelt in front of them, cuffs on her wrists. Listen to me, she said softly. This is not the end. But they're taking you, Emma sobbed. Mrs. Green smiled through tears. Sometimes you have to walk into the fire to stop it. The officers pulled her up. Bennett moved to follow. Ms. Howard blocked him. Careful, Mr. Carter. Mrs. Green looked back at the children. Remember, she said, you are not alone. They dragged her away. The door slammed shut. Silence fell. Then, Eli screamed, not in fear, in rage. And at that exact moment, Bennett's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. 1 sentence. If you want her back, give us the children. Bennett's blood ran cold. Because now the fight had a price. And the next move would decide everything. The message burned in Bennett's hand. He read it again, and again. If you want her back, give us the children. His chest felt tight, like the air had been pulled from the room. Emma was crying into the couch. Ethan paced back and forth like a trapped animal. Eli sat very still, his hands pressed flat against his legs, his face empty. Bennett dropped to his knees in front of them. They took her, Emma said through tears. Just like Mom. The words cut deep. Bennett pulled all 3 into his arms. No, he said firmly. This is not the same. I'm here, and I'm not letting anyone take you. Ethan looked up at him. They want us. Bennett didn't lie. Yes. Why? Eli asked quietly. Bennett swallowed. Because sometimes bad people use rules to hide bad things. The house felt too big, too quiet. Without Mrs. Green's humming, the walls seemed colder. Bennett's lawyers worked through the night. Phones rang. Papers were printed. Voices stayed low and tense. This is no longer standard child services, one lawyer said. This is leverage. They arrested her without cause, Bennett said. That's illegal. Yes, the lawyer replied. But proving it takes time. Bennett slammed his fist on the desk. She doesn't have time. Security footage was reviewed again and again. The break-in, the fake agents, the papers. Everything pointed to one thing. Ms. Howard. She has influence, another lawyer said. And friends. Bennett leaned back in his chair, eyes burning. Then we go around her. The next morning, Bennett did something he had never done before. He went public. Not with money, with truth. He stood in front of cameras outside his gate. The triplets watched from inside. My children are not objects, Bennett said into the microphones. They are human beings who lost their mother and finally found comfort. That comfort is being ripped away by people abusing power. Reporters shouted questions. Who is the caregiver? Why was she arrested? Bennett looked straight into the camera. Because she loved my children when the system failed them. Inside, Emma whispered, That's true. For a moment, hope flickered. Messages of support flooded in. Former foster kids, parents, strangers. Then, the backlash came. New headlines. Billionaire accused of manipulating public opinion. Questions about Maid's past resurface. Ethan threw the tablet across the room. They hate her. They're scared, Bennett said. But fear doesn't stop damage. That evening, the triplets refused to eat again. They lined up their chairs near the door, just like before. She said she'd come back, Emma whispered. Bennett sat with them. I know, he said. Eli looked up. Do you promise? Bennett hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Outside, a car idled too long. Security noticed. The gates stayed locked. The night dragged on. At midnight, Bennett's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Ms. Howard's voice slid through the line, smooth and cold. You made this messy, she said. You kidnapped her, Bennett replied. She interfered, Ms. Howard said. You interfered. What do you want? Bennett asked. Silence. Then, you know. Bennett's voice shook. They are children. They are assets, she replied. Bennett closed his eyes. You're sick. She laughed softly. You're emotional. That makes you weak. The line went dead. Bennett stared at the phone. He felt something shift inside him. Cold. Focused. Like steel. Across town, Mrs. Green sat alone in a small holding room. No window. No clock. Her hands were cuffed in front of her. She hummed softly. A guard scoffed. That won't help you. She looked up. It already has. The door opened. Miss Howard walked in. You should have stayed quiet, she said. Mrs. Green met her gaze. You should have stayed honest. Miss Howard leaned closer. You don't scare me. Mrs. Green smiled gently. I don't have to. Miss Howard's smile faded. We'll place them by morning. Mrs. Green's breath caught for just a second. Then she straightened. You won't. Oh, Miss Howard said. And why not? Mrs. Green's eyes were steady. Because people are watching now. Miss Howard laughed. People forget. Mrs. Green shook her head. Children don't. Back at the mansion, Eli suddenly stood up. I hear something, he said. Bennett turned. What? Footsteps. Soft. Outside the hallway. Security radios crackled. Sir, a guard whispered urgently. We have movement inside the house. Bennett's heart jumped. How? Service tunnel, the guard replied. They're in. Ethan grabbed a lamp. Emma clutched Bennett's arm. No, she cried. Not again. Bennett scooped them up. Safe room. Now. They ran. Alarms failed. Doors slammed. Shadows moved fast. Someone laughed downstairs. Then, a voice echoed through the house. Calm. Confident. Mr. Carter, Miss Howard called out. This ends tonight. Bennett slammed the safe room door shut. Locked it. Held his children close. Outside, footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a soft knock. Too soft. Miss Howard's voice came through the door. Open it, she said. Or we take her somewhere you'll never find. Bennett's blood went cold. because in that moment he knew they weren't bluffing, and the next choice he made would either save everyone he loved or break them forever. The knock came again, soft, patient, like it knew time was on its side. Bennett pressed his back against the safe room door, his arms wrapped tight around the triplets. Ethan's breathing was fast and angry. Emma shook. Eli stared at the door like he was trying to burn a hole through it with his eyes. "Don't open it," Emma whispered. "I won't," Bennett said. Outside, Miss Howard sighed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Bennett shouted through the door, "Leave my house." Silence. Then footsteps moved away. Bennett didn't relax. That silence felt worse than shouting. Minutes passed. No sound. Security radios were dead. Cameras offline. Bennett's phone buzzed. A video call. Unknown number. He answered. Mrs. Green's face filled the screen. She was pale, tired, but alive. "Don't open the door," she said immediately. Emma sobbed. "We miss you." Mrs. Green smiled weakly. "I know, baby." Miss Howard's voice came from off-screen. "You see? She's fine." Bennett growled. "You said you'd take her somewhere I'd never find." Miss Howard stepped into view. "Still can." Mrs. Green looked straight into the camera. "Bennett, listen to me." He leaned closer. "They need you to panic," she said. "Don't." Ethan shouted. "They're bad." Miss Howard laughed. "Smart kid." Mrs. Green shook her head. "You've already lost," she said to Miss Howard. "You just don't know it yet." Miss Howard's smile tightened. "End the call." The screen went black. Emma screamed. Bennett's hands shook. But Mrs. Green's words stayed with him. "Don't panic." Outside the safe room, something scraped. Metal. Slow. Bennett recognized the sound. Tools. They were trying to cut through. He looked around the small room. One exit. No windows. Panic button on the wall. He pressed it. Nothing happened. Eli whispered, "Dad, what if we never see her again?" Bennett knelt and looked each of them in the eyes. "You listen to me," he said softly. "No matter what happens, you stay together. You hear me?" They nodded. "Together," Ethan said. A loud bang hit the door. The hinges groaned. Emma screamed. Bennett pulled them back. Then, sirens. Real ones. Loud. Close. The cutting stopped. Shouting erupted outside. Heavy boots ran. Miss Howard's voice yelled, "Abort!" Bennett's chest heaved. The door rattled one last time. Then silence. An hour later, police lights filled the driveway. Real officers. Federal. Badges Bennett recognized. The safe room door opened from the outside. "Mr. Carter," an agent said, "you're safe." Bennett stepped out with the triplets. The house was torn apart. Furniture smashed. Drawers pulled out. Miss Howard was gone. So were her people. But they left something behind. Folder. Mrs. Green's name was on it. Inside were files. Photos. Records. Evidence. An agent flipped through it. "This is big," he said. "Very big." Bennett's phone rang. A blocked number. He answered. Mrs. Green's voice came through, shaky but steady. "They moved me," she said, "but not fast enough." "Where are you?" Bennett asked. "A holding site," she replied. They didn't expect federal attention. Bennett closed his eyes. "We're coming." "No," she said firmly. "You stay with the children." "I won't leave you," he said. She smiled through the phone. "You already saved me." By morning, the news exploded. Federal investigation launched into child placement corruption. State official missing amid allegations. Cameras returned. This time, the tone was different. Supportive. Curious. Hopeful. The triplets watched quietly. "Is she coming home?" Emma asked. "Yes," Bennett said. "Soon." But Mrs. Green wasn't home yet, and something still felt unfinished. That afternoon, Bennett was called to a secure office. The agent spread documents across the table. "Ms. Howard ran a network," he said. "Illegal placements, profits, influence." Bennett's jaw clenched. "She targeted families with money," the agent continued. And children who wouldn't be believed. Bennett leaned forward. And Mrs. Green? The agent paused. She's the reason this broke open. Bennett exhaled slowly. The agent lowered his voice. But there's a problem. Bennett's stomach dropped. What problem? The network is bigger than we thought, the agent said. And not everyone involved is exposed yet. Bennett stiffened. Meaning they may try again, the agent said. Not for the children. For her. Bennett stood. I won't let that happen. The agent nodded. Then you need to understand something. He slid one last file forward. Inside was a photo of Mrs. Green, much younger, standing at the center of a protest, holding a child, facing down armed officers. The agent spoke quietly. She's not just a maid. Bennett stared at the photo. She's been fighting this system longer than you've been alive. Bennett felt a chill, because now he understood why Ms. Howard feared her, and why the fight wasn't over. That night, the triplets slept peacefully for the first time in days. Bennett sat alone, staring at the photo, and in his phone, a new message appeared. Unknown number. 3 words. She knows too much. Bennett's hands tightened, because the next extreme was coming. And this time it wouldn't happen in the dark. The message stayed on Bennett's phone like a warning carved in stone. She knows too much. He did not delete it. He forwarded it to the federal agent. Then he sat very still. Outside, the mansion was quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before something breaks. Mrs. Green was still in protective custody. That was what they called it. A safe place. Guards. Cameras. Locked doors. But Bennett knew better now. Safe did not always mean safe. The next morning, the triplets woke up laughing. Surprised everyone. Emma was telling Ethan a silly story. Eli smiled, really smiled, for the first time in days. She sang to us in our dream, Emma said. Bennett felt his chest tighten. Mrs. Green. Emma nodded. She said not to be scared. Bennett hugged them all. She's strong, he said. Stronger than anyone I know. But fear followed him anyway. At noon, Bennett was escorted to a secure building downtown. Mrs. Green was allowed 1 meeting, 1 hour. When he saw her standing behind thick glass, his throat closed. She looked smaller, tired, but her eyes were sharp. They sent you that message, she said before he could speak. Bennett nodded. How did you? She smiled gently. Because it's always the same. He leaned closer to the glass. They're still after you. She nodded. Yes. Then let me protect you, he said. I can hide you, move you, buy you time. Mrs. Green shook her head. This isn't about hiding anymore. Bennett's voice broke. Then what is it about? Ending it, she said softly. He stared at her. How? She looked past him, then back again. By telling everything. Publicly. Bennett froze. That will make you a target. I already am, she replied. He clenched his fists. I won't lose you. She smiled kindly. You won't, but you might lose comfort, and power, and safety. He swallowed. I don't care. She studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. That evening plans were made. A press conference. Live. National. No edits. No filters. Mrs. Green would speak. Agents warned against it. She'll be exposed, one said. Mrs. Green answered calmly. Good. The date was set for the next morning. Too fast to stop. Or so they hoped. That night, Bennett could not sleep. He sat in the dark, watching the triplets breathe. Eli opened his eyes. Dad, I'm here, Bennett whispered. Will she be okay? Eli asked. Bennett paused. Then he said, yes. It was the bravest lie he had ever told. At 4:17 a.m., the alarms went off. Not at the mansion. At the secure facility. Bennett's phone rang. The agent's voice was sharp. We have a situation. Bennett's heart slammed. What kind of situation? The power went out on one floor, the agent said. Backup kicked in, but what? There's a fire, the agent said. Near Mrs. Green's wing. Bennett was already moving. I'm coming. No, the agent snapped. You stay put. Bennett ignored him. Smoke filled the hallway. Sprinklers sprayed water. Guards shouted. Where is she? Bennett yelled as he ran. A medic grabbed his arm. Sir, you can't be here. She's in danger. Bennett shouted back. Another explosion rocked the building. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Bennett spotted a guard dragging someone out of the smoke. Small. Gray hair. Mrs. Green. Bennett shouted. She coughed. Eyes closed. He reached her just as the guard laid her down. Her chest moved. Barely. She's alive, the medic said. For now. Bennett dropped to his knees. Stay with me, he whispered. Mrs. Green's eyes fluttered open. She smiled weakly. Told you. They'd try. Don't talk, Bennett said, tears running down his face. She lifted one shaking hand. Promise me, she whispered. Anything, he said. Don't stop, she said. Even if I can't finish it. Bennett nodded hard. I promise. Sirens wailed louder. They rushed her away. By sunrise, the truth hit the news. Attempted silencing of key witness in federal child corruption case. The press conference was cancelled. Mrs. Green was in surgery. Critical condition. The triplets watched the news quietly. Emma held Bennett's hand. She said she'd come back, Emma whispered. Bennett kissed her hair. She's fighting. Ethan clenched his fists. So will we. Hours passed. No updates. Then the doctor came out. Bennett stood. The doctor removed his mask. She survived, he said. Bennett's knees nearly gave out. But, the doctor added, she's not out of danger yet. Bennett nodded. Can she speak? Not for a while, the doctor replied. Bennett closed his eyes. The words she wanted to say were still trapped inside her. And someone out there knew it. That night, Bennett sat alone in the hospital chapel. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. One final message. Next time she won't wake up. Bennett's hands shook. But his fear was gone now. Replaced by something harder. He stood. Because whoever sent that message had just made a mistake. They had crossed the line from control to war. And Bennett Carter was done protecting himself. He was ready to expose everything. Even if it burned the entire system down. And somewhere, machines beeped steadily as Mrs. Green fought to stay alive, while the biggest fight of all was just about to begin. The morning was cold and gray. Rain fell steadily outside the hospital windows, tapping against the glass like impatient fingers. Inside, the atmosphere was tense and sharp, the air heavy with fear and determination. Bennett sat in a hard chair beside Mrs. Green's bed. The triplets were asleep in a small recliner pushed close together, huddled under a thick blanket. Their faces were peaceful, but Bennett knew it wouldn't last. Not until Mrs. Green fully recovered. Her chest rose and fell steadily under the thin hospital sheets, monitors beeping in a slow, measured rhythm. She looked fragile, pale, but alive. Bennett's fingers grazed hers, and she squeezed back ever so slightly. She's strong, he whispered to himself. The phone on the side table vibrated. Unknown number. Bennett answered it immediately. You're alive, a familiar, cold voice said. Ms. Howard. Bennett's jaw clenched. Stop calling. You're done. I'm never done, she replied. Not until you give up. They'll never be yours, he said. Not now. Not ever. Ms. Howard laughed. You're emotional. That makes you predictable. That makes you weak. Bennett's hand tightened around the phone. You underestimate us. You always did. There was a pause. Then her voice cut through sharply. She survived, but she won't last if you keep protecting her. Think carefully, Mr. Carter. One wrong move and she's gone for good. The line went dead. Bennett exhaled slowly, his fists unclenched. Not today, he muttered. The triplets stirred, sensing the tension. Emma's small voice broke the silence. Daddy, she's okay, right? Yes, baby, Bennett said, smiling despite the fear in his chest. She's okay. Ethan's hand found his. But They'll try again? They will, Bennett admitted. But we're ready this time. Federal agents arrived mid-morning. Sir, one said, we've traced Howard's network. It's bigger than we imagined. Several state officials, attorneys, and private contractors. They've been moving children illegally for profit. Bennett's eyes widened. And Mrs. Green? She's our priority. We've increased protection. The building is secure. No one can access her now without federal clearance. Bennett nodded slowly. Good. But what about the triplets? They're safe with you, sir, the agent said. We've monitored their school and home. No threats have approached. He exhaled. For the first time in days, a flicker of relief entered his mind. But deep down, he knew this was only temporary. Hours later, Mrs. Green awoke fully. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked around, seeing Bennett, then the triplets asleep nearby. She tried to sit up, but a wave of pain and exhaustion forced her back onto the pillow. Bennett was immediately at her side. Don't move, he said. You're safe. I didn't think, she whispered, her voice hoarse. They almost. Yes, Bennett said firmly. But you survived, and they won't hurt you again. She tried to smile but coughed instead. Bennett gently patted her hand. They're asleep, she said, nodding toward the triplets. Are they okay? They're fine, Bennett assured her. Thanks to you, they're finally healing. Mrs. Green closed her eyes briefly. I couldn't do it alone. You, all of you, kept me alive in my heart. Bennett held her hand tighter. No one else matters. Not now. Not ever. The press conference was scheduled for the afternoon. Federal agents, lawyers, and security staff coordinated. Bennett and Mrs. Green would reveal everything. The network, the illegal placements, Miss Howard, and her accomplices. Before they stepped out, Mrs. Green whispered to Bennett, Are you ready for this? He nodded. I am, and I promise, I'll protect the triplets no matter what. She gave a small nod. Then let's finish it. The cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Bennett stood at one side. Mrs. Green, wearing simple, professional clothing, stepped up to the podium. She looked calm, powerful, the same way she had stood before years ago, facing armed officers at a protest. Good afternoon, she said. My name is Lillian May Green. I have spent my life helping children who were silenced, separated, or ignored by systems designed to protect them. Today, I am here to tell the truth about a network that illegally placed children for profit, breaking families apart and putting them in harm's way. Bennett watched the crowd. Cameras zoomed in. Phones recorded. Social media exploded with live streams. She continued, unwavering. Some of these children were mine to protect temporarily, yes, but I never sought profit, never took a bribe, never harmed a single child. I acted out of love, compassion, empathy, and that is what made the network afraid of me. Questions fired from all sides. Reporters yelled over each other. Bennett stayed behind, holding the triplets' hands, feeling their tiny fingers squeeze his. Then came the question Bennett knew would arrive. Ms. Green, a reporter asked, what about the accusations that you manipulated billionaire families for attention? She straightened. False and defamatory. My actions were always to protect children who had no voice. And today I have proof. She held up folders. Inside, documents, photographs, and recordings of illegal placements. Names, dates, contracts signed under false authority. Gasps filled the room. Phones clicked frantically. Reporters scribbled notes. Bennett felt the weight of relief. They finally saw the truth. Ms. Howard's name came up repeatedly. Bennett recognized it immediately. And the people responsible? Another reporter asked. Federal authorities are already investigating, Mrs. Green said. And this network will be dismantled. Those who endangered children for profit will face justice. There will be no more secrets. No more lies. Applause erupted in the room. Bennett exhaled, feeling the tension leave his shoulders slightly. But deep down he knew the fight wasn't over. Not entirely. After the conference, they returned to the mansion. The triplets ran to Mrs. Green, hugging her tightly. Ethan whispered, "Don't ever leave us again." "I won't," she promised. "Ever again." Bennett watched them, feeling an unfamiliar calm. The house was still quiet, but now it felt alive. Warm. Safe. That night, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Bennett sat in his office. He looked at the folders Mrs. Green had shown at the press conference. Every name, every illegal placement, every document. He knew what would happen next. Ms. Howard and her network would retaliate. They always did. But now the law was involved, and the world was watching. Bennett allowed himself a small smile. "We're ready for them," he whispered. The triplets slept soundly, knowing that their guardian was finally back. Mrs. Green rested beside them, awake but peaceful. The storm outside had passed, leaving behind a sense of calm victory. Bennett looked at the city lights through the window. He knew challenges were coming. He knew threats weren't gone. But for the first time in a long while, he felt hope. He picked up his phone. A new message. A known number. He held his breath. It read, "You think this is over. It isn't. But we see you now." Bennett smiled faintly. He pocketed the phone. "They can watch all they want," he whispered. "But we'll fight. And we'll win. Because we're not afraid anymore." And as he stood, watching the rain-slick streets below, Bennett Carter finally understood what it meant to protect the ones you love. No matter the danger, no matter the cost. Because some fights aren't about money. Some fights aren't about power. Some fights are about love. And love, real love, was stronger than any threat in the world. The triplets slept peacefully. Mrs. Green was alive. And Bennett knew, in his heart, that they had survived the darkest storm. For now. But he also knew the world would never forget the name Lillian May Green. And neither would he. The weeks that followed were a blur of investigations, court hearings, and media coverage. Ms. Howard and her network were exposed completely. Federal authorities arrested multiple officials, lawyers, and contractors who had profited from illegal child placements. The story dominated headlines across the country. Bennett sat in the living room of his mansion, the triplets playing quietly around him. Emma laughed as Eli and Ethan chased each other through the hall. Mrs. Green sat nearby, reading a small book, her face calm for the first time in months. The storm that had gripped their lives had finally passed. Bennett reached for her hand. "You're really here," he said softly. Mrs. Green smiled. "I never left, Bennett. Not for a second. And neither did they," she said, nodding toward the children. "You all stayed together. You fought. You protected love." Ethan ran up to Bennett. "Dad, can we go outside now? The rain's gone." Bennett laughed, lifting him onto his shoulders. "Yes, champ. It's a new day." Emma ran to Mrs. Green. "Can we stay with you forever now? You always have me," she whispered, hugging her tightly. The sun finally broke through the clouds, flooding the mansion with warm light. It felt like the world itself was forgiving them, giving them a second chance. That evening, as the family sat together watching the city lights, Bennett reflected on everything they had endured. Fear, threats, betrayal, but also courage, kindness, and unbreakable bonds. He realized that Mrs. Green had done more than just care for the triplets. She had taught them all a lesson that no wealth or power could buy. That empathy, love, and courage could overcome even the darkest forces. Mrs. Green looked at Bennett and said quietly, "The fight isn't over in the world, but it's over for us here." Bennett nodded, holding her hand tightly. "Yes, here we are safe. Here we are family." The triplets laughed, chasing shadows across the floor. Outside, the city moved on. But inside, in the walls of the mansion, a bond had been forged in fire, fear, and love. And Bennett Carter knew, without a doubt, that no power, no threat, and no obstacle could ever break the family they had built together. The storm had ended. The light remained. And for the first time, they all believed in a future filled with hope. Together. If you enjoyed the story, Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more emotional and powerful billionaire stories coming soon.